Hello, and welcome to the session of Talking Tech, Women and Girls in ICT. My name is Ha-Young, and I'm representing UNICC as a Communications Aide Intern in today's interview. Talking Tech is a series of interviews celebrating girls and women in tech, brought to you by the ITU, UNICC, Equals, the Global Partnership for Gender Equality in the Digital Age, and the Office of the UN Secretary General's Envoy on Youth. Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing a colleague of mine. Her name is Denian Ouyang, and she's a visual designer based in New York. Denian received her MFA in computer art with a concentration in 3D animation and motion graphics from the School of Visual Arts in New York. Since then, she's interned at the Blue Sky Studios on The Spies in Disguise, where she focused on lighting and compositing. Today, when she's not working on the next video or the animation project for UNICC, she's been working as a visual designer at Eddy, a startup building a gamified health management app for diabetes patients, and also a freelancer in CG, motion graphics, web and UI UX design, data visualization, content creation, and game design. Her clients include Hearst Magazine, China General Chamber of Commerce, USA, UN Sustainable Development Solutions, Network Youth, and etc. During her free time, she enjoys calligraphy, photography, and she is also a fan of Animal Crossing and Zelda. Hi, Denian. It's so good to be able to interview you today. I'm such a fan of the work that you do for UNICC because the visual narrative that you bring to life from UNICC services and projects are so beautiful. I know you've worked on animations and videos such as the UN Digital ID, UN Joint Sanction Screening Solution, UNICC Digital Services Overview, UNICC Recruiting Video, and more, all of which are going to be linked in the video description. And so that leads me to my very first question, which is, how did you land here at UNICC with the skills and experiences that you have?
Well, that's a long story. Like any other kid, I love watching animations, and I still do. I get to learn computer in a very young age. I remember in my primary school, our computer teacher told us how to make a bouncing ball game in PowerPoint. Can you imagine? And then moved to high school. I still remember that I made my first 2D hand-draw animation on a textbook. It's a snowball getting bigger and bigger, and finally it turned into a snowman. So the ball moves a little bit on each page, and then when you flip the book, the animation plays. And even though I'm super interested in art-related things, such as Chinese traditional calligraphy, literature, I took the science class. Maybe it's because somehow I know I will need those sorts of knowledge in the future. Then moved to my bachelor degree in creative media. At there, I explored different media formats, such as animation, video, photography, sound, installation art, game design, computer graphics, and interactive digital media production. It's an interdisciplinary program exploring the ecological balance of art and science. So some of my core courses were in Department of Computer Science. Those courses really bridge the gap between the technical and artistic sides of the media field. And it's at that moment I found that animation, either 2D or 3D, as a digital creative medium, is a field of it's a field to showcase how well that art and science can merge with each other. And that's why I select animation as my main focus and even had a master degree on it. So just like the name of my master degree, computer art, to study animation, computer skills, or the ability to use those digital tools are as important as your creativity and artistic aesthetics. And of course, a good understanding of physics. I remember like in my first animation principle class, the teacher told us Newton's law. So me as a student study science in high school, I learned all of them in physics class. But I'm able to like understand it quickly and apply them in my coursework. But I found that for like to my classmates who concentrated on art field in a very early age, they found it difficult. So with knowledge and skills and hard working for sure, I did quite well, got straight A or even A plus on animation courses. And my undergraduate thesis won the Asia Graph Prize. and my graduate thesis won the alumni scholarship in SVA. And then after my graduation, I interned in the lighting and compositing department in the Blue Sky Studios. So being exposed to the production pipeline and see how each department works together to get the film done. For sure, I really enjoyed to be in in a large group and contribute to the film. But I also realized that instead of focusing on one project for years and acting as one denominator, I would like to speak with my work. Then I joined Aide, a startup dedicated to building a health management app for diabetes children. So in Aide, because it's a small team, everyone has multiple roles. I'm a visual designer, and also I work on UI UX, game design, and also social media content creation, motion graphics, web design, and also research. And also sometimes I will need to do the interview with our users. So at Addie, I feel what I am really doing is actually helping a large group of people, the diabetes children. So not to mention the work I'm doing for UNICC now, like a UN agency. I like the fact that what I'm doing, working on is for social good and meet the guidelines for SDGs, that's Sustainable Development Goals. So to sum it up, my experience happens to prove an old saying that all your experience matters. I love watching animations in my childhood, and I still do. Last weekend, I watched Raya and the Last Dragon. It's pretty good, and you will want to have a fluffy dragon yourself after watching it. And back to the topic, I studied science in high school. I focused on animation in my bachelor degree and found myself doing it well. Then decided to pursue a master degree on it and still found myself enjoying doing it. Then lead to my internship and other works, either from like with Blue Sky Studios or Eddie and other freelancing clients, and then landing on UNICC now.
Wow. From I love the story of your it's just an amazing journey that you just detailed from your bouncing ball game on PowerPoint to all the awards you won from from your education and then your freelancing and now UNICC. I think it's fair to say that you aren't what others may reference as hardcore tech, And so I just wanted to ask, from your interdisciplinary education to your work in animation and media and everything else that you've done, how do you see these experiences converging and overlapping? And which were the most formative and or lasting in memory? And I think in this answer, you can talk about other tech-related career opportunities within the animation industry.
Okay, that's a super good question because I was about to introduce more about the animation industry and why I say it's perfect combination of art and science. And actually, it's not limited to animated film, but all CG, computer graphics films. For example, all those Marvel films or Harry Potter films. Apart from animation applied in film industry, there are also other types like stop motion or motion graphics. You can see motion graphics, this type of animation in advertisement, social media, and in your app. I will talk about this later, but first let's focus on the film session because I feel in this particular field, there are so many tech related positions and opportunities. So take a film production as an example. Apart from directors, producers, actors, or actress, and all those names appear independently at the beginning of the film. You can see lots of names at the end of the film. So in the pre-production, you will need concept artists to draft out or visualize the word director want to create. Then you will need storyboard artists came to visualize the story, the whole timeline, and work on how it flows. And after versions of storyboards, and the director finally say, "Oh yes, this is something I want." It goes to the real production, and then this is the part that the film with actors and actresses and a purely animated film start to be different. So if it's a film with real people, like Marvel's Harry Potter's or those films, that means all the shootings begin. And normally with this type of production will include green screen technology and motion captures. This is all super tech, like you will need technical artists to do the captures. And if it's a pure animated film like Pixar's Soul and other like super great pieces, then it's another different story. And different studios may treat it differently, but in general, they are like following departments. So first is layout, like in a room, you will need to put all your furnitures and maybe you set up the camera. So this department will making the overview plan and decide how the camera moves. And then moves to modeling department. This is the department to build up the world and including characters and the environment. And then like the rest may happen like at the same time because after you have the actual modeling to work on, you for characters modeling, you will need rigging department to add bones and controllers so the character can move. And also you will need texture and surfacing to make that gray models looks good. So add colors for dress, clothes, and also hair. And then the animation department will working after the rigging department to make all those things move. So this part actually happened can happen at the same time. And then also next will be visual effects. It's create a feeling that everything in this world is real, like fires, snow, oceans, and also grass moving in the wind, and also your hair. Your hair needs to move. And also maybe beard, like everything that can move with with a physics law, then it's related to visual effects. And then it's the lighting and compositing department. So this department is like light up the world. So without any lighting, it's all dark. So it's like lighten the shot and also start to combine everything together. And then this will deliver to rendering department to actually make the 3D world kind of into a picture. So what you see in the movie theater is all from the rendering department, and then the editing with editing. So all the departments I mentioned above require superb computer technology skills with coding and programming involved. For example, in lighting department, you may think that it's nothing about coding because it's like lighting. And it's also my focusing area for the 3D animation. And lighting principle itself is part of physics. The way light reflect and scattering is a matter of science. And in the computer world, to lighten up a shot, you will need to define the color of light, the intensity of light, the position of the light, and take the texture or material of the models into consideration. Because for example, if it's human skin, the light will pass through in the edge. You can find that kind of effect when you have your hand and facing the sun. So the color of light also varies in different environments and time. And time also influences the intensity and position of the light if it's an exterior shot. So everything is related to physics. And believe it or not, in the Blue Sky Studio, all lighting artists know coding. And we work on Linux system because the system or software the studio use is purely coding based, which means when the artists lighten up the shot, they didn't actually see the light in a 3D world, but it's all code and then visualize it after rendering. But of course, with technology developed and so many 3D software keep evolving, their software allow real-time rendering. So it's like you do something in the software and you see the result. And among all, actually behind all this department, there's a department disguised behind, which is research and development. It may have different name, but it's super important. And it's a department require top-notch technical skills, full of genius coders. They're responsible for making digital tools, solve technical problems, or even create software for artists. So technology really makes artists' life easier. And above all, are 3D animation for film, where there are so many others, like I mentioned before. And all the animations I created for UNICC are all motion graphics. It's well applied in the marketing, commercial, and communication. And it's just a brief introduction. I hope it helps people to see how diverse tech could be. And I hope through my explanation, it's more understandable that why I say animation is a field, art and science combined together. It's an industry built upon technology and flourish thanks to the technology developed. And also an industry require or motivate more creative technology. For instance, AR and some other like things, computer graphics related technology to grow. So me, myself, to speak about the hardcore techniques related to animation, I learned HTML5, CSS, and JavaScript in my bachelor degree when I had to take those courses in Department of Computer Science. And this skill sets enabled me to take some freelance works as web designer. And in master degree, we had a course called Programming for Animation. It's about Python and coding within 3D animation software. It's not easy, but actually after you get that skills, it do save a lot of time and effort. I also learned processing and Arduino, another creative digital field to explore, and it's super fun to play with. Thus, even when people talking about animation, they don't see it as a super tech industry, but actually it has hardcore tech parts and also artist parts.
I think your example of the different that within the industry, I think your example of the different departments of creating a film is so apt because there is definitely elements of hardcore tech in there with all the coding that you mentioned that you were doing for Blue Sky. But at the same time, you need to know the anatomy for actually building the characters in the animation. So I think that is a really beautiful type of intersection that you just described there through your career. I do want to shift gears slightly and talk about mentors, particularly mentors within the tech sector field, where often we don't get to see much representation in gender parity. I think for many who are looking to pursue a career in the tech field, that can be an issue. And I don't know about you, but I think you can be seen as a mentor yourself when it comes to being successful and all of the things that you've done, including probably working with a lot of male colleagues. And I want to hear about that. So, first off, does this tend to be sort of an issue that comes to your mind? And if so, could you provide an example of when you felt like your gender was the most salient?
Actually, I'm a little bit excited that we move into this gender topic. And speaking of gender parity in animation industry, I actually prepared some figures. So,
Okay.
according to Women in Animation, the only organization dedicated to advancing women in the field of animation, among 120 top animated films from 2007 to 2018, only 17% had a female lead or co-lead, and there has been no meaningful improvement in the percentage of female producers in live action features over 12 years. And the numbers tell. Some people may cite it, the historical legacy of animation industry as a reason for the existence of masculine culture in animation industry. But with all the gender equality movement going on everywhere, animation industry, same as all the other tech fields, should not be an exclusion. And personally, I'm positive because like my mentors in my um, post postgraduate thesis is a female. And also my mentors in the Blue Sky Studios, the lighting part is also a female. They are really great. And also to mention a little bit about that history of animation dates back to 2D dominant era. Key animators were normally male, and female were only hired on like in-betweens or cleanups and coloring. And in Japan, the home of Ghibli and all the well-known animation studios, the situation is getting better, but definitely a lot of space to improve. And shifting to 3D or CG animation, it opens more opportunity for female. As I introduced, there were so many different roles in the production pipeline, now still dominated by male workforce, but actually female are capable to do those work as well. And another figures, also from women in animation, more than 60 of animation and art school students are women, but only 20% of creative jobs are held by women. So WEA wants to make it 50 by 50 by 2025. And I'm positive about that, but this also requires more and more female work on this together. And actually, before watching this Talking Tech interview series, I never take gender issue into serious consideration because at the one hand, I've gotten used to the environment that female is the minority in a young age. Like I always have lots of male classmates or male colleagues around me. So I never realized that it could be a problem. And on the other hand, and I feel my generation, the 90s, are enjoying the bonus of our grandma and mom's effort. The environment is getting better and better. I think back to my high school, I was in the top class of science. There were 42 students in total, and only 11 are girls, and including me. And I feel it is starting from my generation or two generations before. Teachers and parents start to say that the saying that girls cannot be as good as boys in math or science is not true. This actually stressed me a lot, like invisibly. During that time, I always try my best in everything, just because I want to prove that girls can do a good job in math, or even better than boys. And I feel guilty or shamed if I lost in this competition, especially when I failed the last question, which normally regarded as the hardest one in the exam because sometimes it's just because my carelessly. And I will feel angry if someone treat that kind of thing and label it just say because you are a girl. And among my classmates, there are girls who are super intelligent. And one of them is pursuing her PhD in math in Harvard. And my mom, who's always been my role model, she got her PhD in statistics. And this could be this question, the female can do it well in math or not? It could be a question about smart or not, or hardworking or not, but never a question about gender. And shifting from school to work environment, there were times I felt I'm discriminated, but I would thought, oh, maybe it's me being too sensitive. But then I read it somewhere, the saying is, when you thought if you are discriminated, then you are discriminated. Now I feel it's important to be sensitive and speak up. I remember there's one time that in a group discussion, we are all brainstorming and pitching ideas. And when I'm talking, without finishing my words, a guy at that time was my supervisor, just interrupted and said, "Come on, I cannot understand your English." So I was super embarrassed and didn't know what to say or react at that moment. Until now, I still remember this little thing. I think it's because that I didn't speak up at that moment. So I missed the perfect chance to like react back. Then it lasts long in my memory. And well, the case also let me know that if someone wants to discriminate against you, it could be your gender, your accent, your color and race, or even you prefer tea over coffee. And speaking of race, there are a lot of things happening now, like for the Asia. And among those, like back to that figure, among those 120 top animated film from 2007 to 2018, the numbers I mentioned in the like that question, guess how many female leads are women of color? So in that 17%, only 3% are women of color. So yeah, that's the situation. It's getting better, but still lots of problems. And actually, Ha-Young, I'm most interested in your answer, like being an Asian female as well. but natively growing in America without any accent or huge lifestyle difference. Do you have any like memories still stings because you're an Asian female?
That is a great question. Well, let me speak to being female because I think you spoke very extensively on that. I agree in that there is definitely a push. I think the series being one of them, there's a push to see more women in IT, and I think that's actually really, really amazing. The education that I received was I studied media and communication, and interestingly enough, it was nearly all women. So when you're speaking about your experience about your mother getting her PhD and your friend getting your PhD, and you being in a STEM field in high school and being one of the very few girls, I didn't experience that. But what to me, I do still ask the question. It's like, why is it that all the girls like are in my field and why are all the guys elsewhere? I don't really know, and that's something that I wish to continue to explore in my career. When it comes to my ethnicity, it's interesting because it's something that is very I feel like I have a lot of related experiences with people who are not the same ethnicity as me, yet at the same time I don't. I probably have more experiences that are in common with and you haven't grown up in America. So it's a constant balance of how much can I relate to my manager? How much can I relate to my coworkers? It's like you have to sort of you have to think about what to say much more than I would if I were with other Asian Americans. So that's just like a constant like how much can I say? Like, is it okay to say this? Is it not okay? But I think earlier, again, to your point about how there is growing representation, I do feel that in the tech sector for both my gender as being a female and also my ethnicity as being Korean. But thank you for asking me that question. I guess for young women who are interested in pursuing creative endeavors, professional endeavors within the tech sector, is there anything that you wish you could tell these young women? Perhaps it may be a message that you've wanted to hear when you were younger, or something that you've had in your heart since then.
So the first thing I want to share is that don't shut the door for yourself and give yourself a chance to explore. And don't ever let someone label you or listen to that kind of like sayings. The tech industry is super diverse. There are computer scientists, data analytics, astronauts, and software engineers being called tech expert. But there are also like rigging artists, lighting and composition artists, CG technical artists, motion capture artists, and animators, and who are also tech experts with digital skills and creative thoughts. And when learning new things, I think there will be a period you feel everything is too complicated for you. Everything is not working out. This is not for me. I should give up. But I actually myself believe in the 1,000-hour rule. And by expose yourself in this diverse tech environment and find your interested area, I think won't take that long. Because for me, I find animation as my passion in a very young age. And another lesson I want to talk about is a lesson I learned myself during these past 3 years after graduation. So we cannot talk about career without mentioning salary. There's a difference between I like your work and I'm willing to pay for your work. So don't misunderstanding that signal. And I think it's related to the commercial value of yourself. I guess this is the lifelong issue for all the artists. It's related to the context. Employer need to realize the value of your work and the technologies, efforts, and creativity behind the work, but also something that we, as the artist or employee, should be aware of it. Yeah, that's something I want to share.
Thank you for that inspirational message. I'm sure someone out there in the audience heard that and just felt so heard. So thank you for that. I wanted to ask another question about not young women who are interested in entering the tech field, but people who are already within the tech field, whether it's the hardcore tech or animators or anyone as such. If those people are interested in entering the public sector or specifically the UN, what is something that you would like to tell them?
So I think like, for example, the roles as animator or graphic designer or visual designer, these types of roles are super rare in UN. Actually did some research on that, but most of the jobs like openings related to this creative industry is either short term or is outsourced. They seldom have a full-time position on this. And I think this is also related to the working environment of all visual designers. They tend to be project-based or freelance. So I think for and it's not advice, but for like people who want to work in UN as like graphic designer or video editor or animator, I think it's important that you have that SDGs in your mind, that your content actually will make a difference for someone. So that's the thing we gain versus the all those commercial values we create. For all the people who want to work for UN, we have that kind of sense of responsibility, and maybe we could make a little bit difference to make the world better. So that actually led me think about the one old sayings my high school teacher taught us in our last class. It's something saying that when you are living in the sunshine and enjoying all your like benefits and enjoying a very good life, you need to remember that someone is still struggling. They are maybe don't have enough food. They may be suffering from the war. So actually my thesis, the postgraduate thesis, the topic, the animation, 3D animation, the topic is about the afterlife of a child when she died in the war. So I actually used that animation to memorize all the people, all the children died in the war. And that's something like I think is when your skill set are capable of to help more people to make a difference. Like for myself, I will want to do that, but it's just different for people. Like if people working for private sector, like that best friend, she's working in the private sector. So what she did is actually help people to get work and they can live a life on themselves. So it's also helping people. So no matter like private sector or public sector, as long as you have that sense of responsibility, that helping people and make a difference to make the world better, then I think everyone's work is really help the world getting better.
I think that's an excellent way to put it. And the fact that you can do something so visual and something so real through that way of storytelling that a lot of people within the UN or within the public sector probably are not able to do. I think you bring an incredibly valuable asset. So I think definitely that opens a lot of doors for a lot of people. Before we end this interview, is there any questions, anything else you would like to ask me?
Yeah, I'm actually interested in how you see yourself in the future working in the tech industry. Because I know you just finished your bachelor in New York University on media, culture, and communication, and you are also pursuing a master in law related program. And you are interested in the intersection of tech and law. I'm really interested in how you see the role of law in the tech and the future.
Well, I think, I would like my career to go down that path of tech and law. And the reason being is that just going back to what you said earlier in this interview about all those tools and all those different ways of going into the tech industry, with every tool and with every path, there has to be guidelines set in place. And I think tech law as a field is so important because it has to protect things that law is meant to protect. So like our individual rights and, like our work and our property, while not discouraging innovation. In fact, it has to encourage innovation. So I think finding that balance is so interesting. And I think, I love like innovative tech. And I think just like to your point, also you spoke about how the role of 3D animation and CG actually paves ways for women to enter the tech industry. Additionally, like that sort of innovation in tech also paves way for new laws and new guidelines to be written. And it's just so interesting to me. So that's sort of the path that I want to take. Yeah, so I just wanted to thank you for this interview. I feel like I learned a lot, and it is really an honor and a pleasure to be always be working with you in the same team, and I'm so happy to have met you. So to all the viewers watching, be sure to check out the links to Denian's videos that she's made at UNICC, and also to her personal website where you can find all of her projects and all of her amazing works. So thank you everyone for watching. Bye.